Woj drops an early morning bomb about Jaylen Brown and Kevin Durant trade talks, and all of Twitter, all of Celtics Nation has been lit ablaze since then. What does this mean? What's really going on here? We're going to talk about it right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you for making the show part of your daily routine, Monday through Friday this week. Then next week, we start the August 3-day week podcast. Of course, extra podcasts as necessary. So who knows, maybe we'll have 4 or 5 days a week, depending on whether things like today's topic happen again with Jaylen Brown and trade rumors. We'll be talking about that in just a minute. First, this podcast is free, available to you wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you're subscribed. You can watch the show on YouTube. I'm John Karalis. I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I'm getting into my 16th year covering the Celtics. It's been a long time since I've had my focus on this team. And today we're discussing Jaylen Brown and the 2:30 a.m. report from Adrian Wojnarowski that, all of a sudden the Celtics are players for Kevin Durant. So this morning, I also woke up to a text from this man, Tom Westerholm, who said, I've got takes. So I said, well, why don't we combine our takes into what's commonly known as a podcast? So,
a podcast. I believe my exact text was LMAO dog.
Yeah. That was the exact text. And then we kind of went down from there. So last night, I'm wrapping up the mailbag podcast. I'm posted it. I'm tired. I'm brushing my teeth. I go to bed. I start to set my alarm, and I'm like, one more scroll through Twitter. And then
as we do, as one does.
That's what we do. And I see him like, why? What? Woj? What? And he posted at 2:30 in the morning a story that the Celtics are suddenly in the mix for Kevin Durant, and Jaylen Brown and Derek White are part of this whole thing. And since then, it's just been kind of madness. All day today has just been madness. Tom, let me just throw the general blanket first softball, lob it up there. What do you make of this report?
Wow. So usually when you throw that softball to me, I'm like, all right, let's get this thing going. But now I'm like, oh man, there's so many places to start.
Yes.
I think my initial take is like this feels like whatever happens now, this feels like a really, really important moment in Celtics history, right? Like at least in the current. I mean, honestly, yeah, like in Celtics history, realistically, because like Jaylen Brown is now a major part of Celtics history, or at least, a semi-major part. He's certainly a major part in kind of modern Celtics history. Kevin Durant, like the pursuit of Kevin Durant has been a thing since, for the last 15 years, since 2007 when he was drafted. I mean, this is kind of a pretty monumental thing because, one way or the other, Woj reported that the Celtics have been conversing about Kevin Durant. If the Celtics are conversing about Kevin Durant, I don't see any other avenue to acquire him other than trading Jaylen Brown. So if they're not interested in trading Jaylen Brown, I feel like starting this dialogue is a waste of time on their end, or at least if they're not willing to think about it, right? Like I know there's other, the Nets aren't getting whatever they hope to get, in these conversations, but I mean, the Nets aren't going to trade Kevin Durant to the Celtics without getting Jaylen Brown in return. I feel like that's, a pretty, you look like you got some thoughts on that. But
no, I mean, look, every team in the league, minus maybe a couple, should be calling the Brooklyn Nets to see, hey, Kevin Durant requested a trade. And like I compared, I've been comparing it all day to someone says, okay, I got to sell this car. All right. You know that they have to sell the car. And they're like, we want $10,000 for it. And you walk by and you're like, 10,000. I've only got 2,000 on me. And so that you're very obviously saying, I want to gauge your interest in my $2,000 because I kind of want to see how desperately you want to get rid of this car. And I'm not offering you the 2,000. I'm just saying I've got 2,000 in my pocket. Wink. That you're just let's talk about what I have and what you got. And if they laugh at you and say, no, I was actually thinking like 10 is where we start, and maybe we get a bidding war going, then okay, that's a different story. But if the Celtics, and I think it's pretty much plain to say you have to probably trade Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant, right? Like you have to include Jaylen Brown to just start the conversation, like you said. So I don't know where things went, but here's my take on the situation. I don't think this report has anything to do with the Boston Celtics being interested in trading for Kevin Durant. I think it's I think that Boston called. I think Brad Stevens picked up the phone and he said, well, Jaylen and Derek White works. We could throw a pick in there, and it's that's something that works. And maybe the Celtics can like just toss that out there. Not that they're making a formal offer, but just toss it out there. And Marks could be like, well, I would probably want Marcus. I'd probably want like at least another rotation player. So now that fulfills the reporting of Celtics kind of opened with an offer. It was rejected, and the Celtics took it back and are mulling what to do next, which basically is nothing. You're not in August. August is not the time to trade Jaylen and Derek White and Marcus Smart, and I assume another rotation player is probably like Grant Williams. Now's not the time to trade that for Kevin Durant when all the free agents are gone, when all the tradable players are gone, and now you've taken away 2 starters and 2 key bench guys to a finals run and replace them with, Kevin Durant and whomever else Seth Curry, somebody to make the salaries match. But what has that done for you? Like Kevin Durant makes up for some of the difference. You can say, hey, maybe Kevin Durant makes up for for Jaylen and Derek White, but you're still giving up 2 other guys and a million picks. Like you haven't gotten anywhere in that scenario. You have Kevin Durant, but you haven't improved your team a whole lot. You've given yourself a superstar, and then you've stripped away other parts. So I don't believe that this is the time where the Celtics would make that kind of deal. I think Sean Marks said, geez, my phone isn't ringing a whole lot. I'm trying to shake Scotty Barnes free from Toronto or Brandon Ingram free from New Orleans. And they sit there and like, I just listened to a Low Post podcast last week where they were like, why would Toronto offer Scotty Barnes? There's no other teams that they're bidding against. So Sean Marks goes, well, I'm going to make a team that they're bidding against. You've got Windhorst coming out and saying that conversation is probably weeks old. Nothing's happening right now. Dumping a lot of cold water onto the rumors. To me, it's very simply Sean Marks calling up 2 guys who he knows are going to publish this report, putting the Celtics in there, making Jaylen Brown the focal point of this, and sending the signal out, hey, Toronto, hey, New Orleans, hey, I don't know, Phoenix, whichever other team, just so you know, I have a sort of kind of Jaylen Brown thing working, and you're going to have to beat that now. So they have to figure out, does he actually have, if you're playing Texas Hold'em, does he actually have under those 2 cards, does he have Jaylen Brown and Derek White under there? Or is that a 2 and a 7 off suit? And you're like, well, that's nothing. Is he bluffing or is he not? And I think he's bluffing. I think this is just negotiation.
So I half agree with you. I think that this is clearly, I mean, look, it's very clearly Sean Marks, right? Like that,
Yeah.
There's no reason.
You might as well quote the guy at this point.
You literally might as well quote the guy. I mean, yeah, like it's very clearly Sean Marks, which now here's the thing. I do think that like it's interesting that what the tact that he took was really smart, because I don't see a world in which this comes out looking good for the Celtics to Jaylen Brown, and I think that matters a whole lot. Like Jaylen, look, Jaylen has had, he's been in trade discussions before. He's or at very least, he's been like rumored in them before. I mean, there was all the stuff before the draft. There was all, there were, counting like other times where his name gets brought up, and it's like, the Celtics probably aren't considering that really because they value Jaylen Brown. But I mean, if you think back, there was, there was some like very low level rumbling with Damian Lillard. There was some low level rumbling with James Harden. There have been plenty of moments where it's like, I probably wouldn't do it, but I guess I can kind of see the roadmap there. This, I think, is pretty clearly the most serious one because, Durant, I think, is very easily the best of the players. Because if you remember, like Anthony Davis was like, there were conversations about Anthony Davis. I mean, I guess you could throw Kawhi in there because when they were talking about Kawhi,
sure.
I mean, that was
Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, exactly. But like Anthony Davis was an interesting one because that was actually Tatum, which is it's just kind of funny to remember that the idea was like trying to hang on to Jaylen because you were probably going to have to give up Tatum to get AD. But I guess the thing that I wonder about is just like I'm not sure how much it matters like who kind of put this out there, because if the offer was real, then Jaylen Brown now knows that the Celtics have offered him to the Nets for Kevin Durant. And I don't know how much that matters to Jaylen Brown, but I do know that was a smart move by Sean Marks because, and look, I think one thing that we can deduce, because like there's clearly something weird happening with this reporting, right? Like Woj went all the way around saying that the Celtics actually offered Jaylen Brown. Like he skirted that like he was trying to drift in Mario Kart. Like he was just
right.
I'm coming around that one. And meanwhile, Shams literally put the package out there.
Sure.
So, I think very clearly there was a package that, however you want to call it, whether it was like a formal offer, whatever that means or whatever, it sounds like the Celtics kind of, they had more than $2,000 in their pocket, right? They had Jaylen Brown, Derek White, and a draft pick in their pocket. Like that's a lot more than $2,000.
Sure.
So, I mean, I think that's semi-serious, right? Like that's you. That's not you going to the guy with the $12,000 car and saying, "Here's $2,000." That's you going to him and saying, "Listen, man, I got 10,000. I got like 11,000. Like if you can come down 1,000, maybe we can talk." And then the guy being like, "No, actually, I want 14. I changed my mind." But like, I do think that was a really, whatever it is, I think that's a brilliant move by Sean Marks because it puts the Celtics in a really uncomfortable position of having to tell a guy who has 2 years left on his contract, during which he is going to be second banana the whole time. Now they have to tell that guy, no, actually, we value you. We never offered you for Kevin Durant. You're happy here. You're happy here. And it's like, it's pretty clear that something happened.
Yeah. I got thoughts on that. I'm gonna bring you those thoughts. I also have thoughts on Built Bar Puffs, and now they have cookie dough Built Bar Puffs. This is my absolute weakness. Cookie dough, I cannot resist it. And now they got cookie dough chunk puffs that have a light, chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Are you kidding me? Plus, they're only 160 calories and 15 grams of protein. This is just indulgent without being indulgent. And you can go to built.com right now and snag a box for you and your family. It's the perfect treat. Or you can just hide them and hoard them for yourself. That's another option too. Just like the Built Bars, cookie dough chunk puff is covered in 100% chocolate, and that means they're healthy and tasty. Chocolate covered cookie dough with light, fluffy texture. It's amazing. Oh my God, I'm just dying for one right now. All of their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. You can eat something that tastes good and is good for you. You're going to love the new chocolate covered cookie dough chunk puff. Whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, a quick bite, something in the car on the way to work with a cup of coffee, it's It's a nice little light breakfast that's delicious. It's the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories and fat and sugar. Grab yourself a Built Bar, and you can do it with the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. That's going to get you 15% off every single time, so make sure you run on over to Built.com. Use that promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your next order. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Make Locked On NBA your second listen every day. I host on Wednesdays with Jake Madison of Locked On Pelicans. Boy, that would be a fun conversation between the two of us if the Celtics are dealing with the Kevin Durant Pelicans. Who knows what's going to happen there? I like that deal for them. So Locked On NBA, wherever you get your podcast, rotating hosts all week. Again, me and Jake on Wednesday. So find that podcast wherever you get this one and watch the show on YouTube. So Tom, basically, to sum up your thoughts, Sean Marks lobbed a grenade, just pulled the pin, throw it over, and is hoping if he's maybe trying to accomplish 2 goals at once, trying to get a few people to start making some real progress, make a real offer for Kevin Durant. And, oh, by the way, if in a couple of years Jaylen Brown shakes free, you can sign him as a free agent. Hey, why not?
No, actually, my thought is that what he did was he put the Celtics in the uncomfortable position of like feeling like they need to trade Jaylen Brown, feeling like okay, if this guy's going to be upset, if he's going to be out, I mean, what are we going to get that's better than Kevin Durant? And then Sean Marks gets the best player by far, the best prospect by far that he could possibly get for Kevin Durant.
I still don't think that's. I had a conversation with Adam Armbrecht from the Locked On Nets podcast. Jaylen is the best player, right? Maybe, I mean, you can maybe make an argument that Scotty Barnes will become a better player. But okay, so Jaylen's the best player, but would Boston have the best overall package, which is the draft? Like, I feel like New Orleans can put together a package throwing in some of the Lakers picks and saying, okay, Brandon Ingram is not Jaylen Brown, but he's still pretty good. And you have more room to work with, and you've got a ton of picks. And you say, okay, here's Brandon Ingram and whatever other players there, and great draft picks from the Lakers that are going to help you restock right away versus the crap draft picks from the Celtics that's going to, they're going to be at the top of the East for the next 3-4 years. Don't go with them, go with us. Like, I feel like that, yeah, maybe he could say, well, now we're going to force the Celtics' hand to trade Jaylen Brown. I disagree with that notion, but even if they did, I also think that Toronto and New Orleans can put together a really, really attractive package that doesn't make the Celtics package automatically, just because it has Jaylen Brown, automatically great. So we can debate that later.
Sure.
What I disagree that this is going to make Jaylen Brown say, well, that's it, I'm out of here. Because I think Jaylen has to understand, and maybe he doesn't, maybe I'm wrong here, but I think every NBA player has to understand. And through Mark Murphy, there was a source close to Jaylen that said Jaylen loves it in Boston. He understands his name's going to be in these trade rumors. Lumped Jaylen in with a bunch of players that are, in a little bit of a different class, but whatever, that's fine. They understand that Jaylen, but it is true.
So he said, real quick, just to clarify Murph's source, it wasn't a source close to Jaylen, it was just source. So that could have been a Celtics source too. Like that could have been like a Celtics guy doing damage control.
Oh, okay. Well, whichever it is.
Yeah.
I feel like players should know at this point, hey, Kevin Durant's out there as a trade chip. Every GM has to go and say, well, if KD's available, what's it going to take? What's it going to take? And I think Brad has some plausible deniability because of the Woj report that says, like, he can say, look, Sham's got bad information. Woj didn't put out there that we offered you, like, because we didn't offer you. and we can have a discussion with them about, hey, what would it take? And we know that because he's KD, it's going to take a lot. You have to make a phone call. Names
You can smooth it over,
around.
yeah.
You know, like this is how it goes. Like names are going to get thrown around. Just like when you say you want to play with somebody, somebody's got to go that you don't want to leave. Like this is just the business, and like you have to be mature enough to hear that and understand. Like, yeah, of course we're going to call to see, and hey, maybe they're desperate enough that it doesn't take you. Maybe we have to put a package together of somebody else. We don't know if we don't call. And then if we say, well, yeah, Jaylen and Derek White is a package that works, that doesn't mean that we're saying that's a package that we're willing to give. I think Brad has that plausible deniability that he can go to Jaylen and say all of that stuff. And we've built around you. We got Malcolm Brogdon in to support you. We got Gallinari in to support you. We've built a team to support you and to support Jayson, because you two guys got us to the finals, and we believe in you. If we wanted to trade you for Kevin Durant, we could have done it at the beginning of free agency when he became available. If we wanted to trade for you, and this would be my argument from Brad, if we wanted to trade you for Kevin Durant, we would have done it on July 1 when free agency was still going on, and I had the full TPE or the TPE. I would have had a $17 million traded player exception. I would have had all these tools to trade you and all of these other players that they want, get KD, use all these other tools to build a team around them. I didn't do that because I don't want to trade you, right? And I think I think that argument is convincing. Why would you let the $17 million TPE expire if you are going to trade Jaylen Brown and a bunch of stuff for Kevin Durant and then do it after that expires when you would need that to build out a bench and build out the rest of your roster? Like, I feel like if you wanted to do it, there's been plenty of time to do it, and they didn't, because as Wendy reported, this conversation is weeks old, and I think it died then, and it's just resurfacing so Sean Marks can signal, hey, by the way, I have an offer out there.
Yeah, so that's a good argument. I think that there could be one other. No, but let me put that celebration away.
I can shut your mic off anytime I want. You said it's a good argument. I can end the. Thanks everybody. Make sure you like, subscribe. Now go ahead.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm so good. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I think there's one other thing that could be happening though that I think is kind of interesting. So let's I still think that the Celtics have the best potential trade package. Like, if Jaylen and a pick. I honestly think Jaylen, a pick, and Derek White is so much better than Scotty Barnes and whatever. Like, I think the Nets have. I just think Jaylen's a really freaking good player, and I'm sure Brad does too. And I think that there's any number of reasons that Brooklyn might if they're trying to win basketball game, and they still have Ben Simmons, like they have they could win some games, like they still have Kyrie, like all this stuff, they still have players who can win basketball games. Jaylen, also a player who can win basketball games. So I think that Jaylen it makes that package better than other teams' packages, just because I think very highly of Jaylen. Now, the thing that I think is very interesting is I think both Sean Marks and Brad Stevens can kind of have this staring contest at each other, where Sean Marks says, well, I blew up your spot with Jaylen, Brad. And Brad's like, yeah, but I have Jaylen, Sean. Yeah. And they can just kind of eyeball each other for a while now. So I don't know if that's what's going on, but I do think that's also a possibility that Sean Marks is yeah, I just really want Jaylen Brown. I don't want to put Scotty Barnes next to Ben Simmons. Those two make no sense next to each other. It's going to be brutal. He's like, yeah, Jaylen would just be so perfect. That guy's so good. And then Brad's like, yeah, man. Yeah. and maybe Sean going to, Shams and Woj and saying this was him kind of hey, let me shake that. I really want Marcus Smart too. Or what I actually think, if my scenario is right, what I actually think he's doing, I don't think he cares that much about Smart. I think he's pushing on that pressure point, saying, no, I know you have more in there. You can't just give me your most superfluous combo guard. You have to you can give me your most superfluous combo guard, and you have to give me an extra pick, and you have to give me Grant Williams. What up? So I think that's also a possibility.
The argument will be that, hey, Marks has the ace in the hole because he's got Kevin Durant. And I would argue that it's the opposite with the Celtics, that the Celtics have the ace in the hole because, dude, we just went to the finals. And we added Malcolm Brogdon and we added Gallinari. We have the same core that ripped through the East after mid-January. We have the same team plus Brogdon and Gallinari that swept your ass out of the playoffs. So we don't need to give you 4 of the guys that made that happen for the one guy who's 34 that I just think that Brad can be like, okay, if that's what you want, then I can walk out. Going back to the car thing, you got to be willing to walk out of the dealership.
That is true.
That's the whole thing with negotiations. You got to be willing. I have been part of multiple negotiations, not just buying a car, like collective bargaining agreements. You got to be willing to say, this is where I draw the line. And we're willing to get up and walk out. And I've done it where you sit there and they come back and the company comes back and says, we're not moving. And we say, okay, well, it's been good talking to you. We'll schedule, we'll get our people together to schedule the next thing. And we're like, and we all leave. And then sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but you got to be willing to do it to try to get them to move or to back off a request. Brad can absolutely do that. You've got Jaylen, who is 25, Jayson, who is 24. Again, like, I know that getting to the finals doesn't guarantee anything, but you've gotten better. One more year under Ime Udoka, one more year under a system that can now be expanded because they are aware of now everything that Ime wants. So they've got a good base. Now you can build on that. You can start like, you've built a nice house. Let's put an addition on the top of that thing. Let's get that thing to 5 and 6 floor. Let's get this thing. Let's build on what we've started here. That would be the attitude that I think they should have. So yeah, you give that look for Durant, but I don't think Brad is under any pressure. I don't think he's under any pressure at all to trade Jaylen Brown. I don't care what Sean Marks does. I think it's a simple conversation. And if there's one thing that Brad can do is have good, meaningful, face-to-face conversation where he's talking to people and actually can connect with them. That good, polite Midwestern guy can really just get into you. Like he can just sell it to you. There's no convincing me otherwise at this point that this is anything besides Sean Marks trying to shake something free from someone else. I don't think this has anything at all to do with the Boston Celtics at all, other than we need you to make them jealous. We need you to make them like, I just need to be seen with you so I can, so they can be like, oh, wait a minute. Whoa, okay, you have options? Well, now let's talk because now I want to dance with you.
If that's what he's doing, like there's a history of that, right? Like
happens all the time.
Plenty of teams have done this with the Celtics, with Jaylen Brown. Like, yeah. I mean, that is to what, Murph's source was saying, where it was like, like Kawhi, like AD, like others on that level, he's going to be included in every report because of who he is. That is true. That has happened with the Celtics many times. If that's what Sean Marks is doing, I do think it's a little played out because, like, everybody goes to that well. Everybody goes to the Celtics well, and it's just like, the Celtics offered Jaylen Brown. What's interesting about this one to me is that Portland could never go to other teams about Lillard and be like, well, the Celtics offered Jaylen and Smart. You never heard that because it never happened. Or like, right. The Rockets couldn't do that with Harden. And I don't, I think there was a report recently, actually, I believe that the Celtics actually did offer Jaylen for Kawhi, if I remember right. I could be wrong. I might be wrong about that one. Don't nobody aggregate me. I'm aggregation here.
Sure.
I don't know about that one. But regardless of whatever it is, like this does happen often with Jaylen. So like it was funny, he tweeted that SMH, right?
Yeah.
And like I think everybody on Twitter was just like, oh no, here he goes, this is happening, like it's all happening. Jaylen's mad, Jaylen's out, Jaylen wants to be gone. But like, there's an alternate reading of SMH where it's just like, dude, stop dragging my name into everything. I'm so tired of this.
100%.
That's also possible.
I would not be surprised if that is the case. Like, I don't know that he's upset. The more you say with the Murph tweet that it might have actually been a Celtics the way that it was worded, but I do think that there are alternate perceptions of like Jaylen on the floor in the locker room with these guys. I think there's like everything is cool with that, but I think on the outside, this is where I think too many people make too much of, oh, well, Jaylen keeps hearing his name in rumors. At some point, he's going to be like, well, I got to get out of here because I keep hearing my name in rumors. As if playing in any other city is going to take his name out of rumors. Like that's if the Celtics trade Jaylen Brown today to pick any team in the NBA, Oklahoma City, the quietest, most controlled, small market team, media, zip nothing. I guarantee you by the trade deadline, there will be 10 scenarios where people go, well, they don't really need Jaylen Brown. They got him so they can get more first round picks. And here are 5 teams that could probably trade for Jaylen Brown right now. And blah, blah. Like that's because he's 25. He's really damn good. And right now, over the next 2 years, he makes an amazing amount of money. Like contractually, he's like 28 million, which is just, oh my God. Like he's actually paid normally for what he provides. You can say he's probably a little underpaid, especially compared to some of the people out there.
I would say so.
Yeah. So yeah, every team's gonna be, oh my God, we can get Jaylen. Like if Jaylen Brown came available, I'll take it a step further. If Jaylen Brown did come available, if the Celtics said, you know what, we don't think he's going to resign. We think that he's unhappy and we think that he needs to be traded. You could put that out there and now start sifting through offers just to see if something better than 34-year-old Kevin Durant comes along. You could see if another younger star player that you can say, hey, maybe it's a different position that fits better. If you really thought that Jaylen is on the way out and we've got to trade him now to maximize him, I don't think you have to turn around and give up what you have to give up for Kevin Durant. I think you can start looking around and finding a package that fits. Shop him. If you're going to trade him, then shop him.
I can't tell if I agree or not. I actually, because here's the thing. I think Kevin Durant is better than whatever, because you could shop him, but then teams would be offering you like what they would be willing to give you for Jaylen, not like the other way around where you're trying to bring in the superstar. Like I feel like teams would be trying to lowball you, whereas you're trying to like go get the super duper star. Also, yeah, I'm just not sure.
Then what could happen is that Brad Stevens can call me at 2 a.m. and float out there that he's got an offer about Kevin Durant from the Nets.
The Mavs offered Luka Doncic. No, I don't know if I buy that one, just because I don't know that you're going to get much better than Kevin Durant. Because I think, look, I want to put this out there just for the record. I would think that I think the Celtics should probably hang on to Jaylen. You and I have talked about this before, but
totally agree, 100%.
Yeah, I don't. You got this, you have this rare opportunity to do 2 things that I think both kind of matter. Like, one, you can contend. That's obviously a huge thing that obviously matters. 2, you can kind of like rebuild your image as a franchise. Like you're kind of in this position to like where, Danny kind of, look, everybody gets why he traded IT for Kyrie, but like it did kind of tank the Celtics image around the league, right? Like with players and stuff like that, or at very least, it's like the excuse that people use. Yeah. Now it's a new administration. The Celtics can try to have this homegrown contender, all of that, right? Like I do get all of that. And I buy into that. I think that all of that matters. I can also kind of see if your whole goal is I wrote about this on Boston.com. If your whole goal is the cold, hard pursuit of a championship, I do think that KD plus Jayson Tatum is better, right? I just think that is a championship duo. I think that makes the Celtics probably, when you think about the players that are still going to be around them, even if you had to give up Grant Williams, you think about the rest of the team that's around them. If you can hang on to Marcus Smart, you got Smart, Tatum, KD, Rob, Horford, this whole team, Brogdon still coming off the bench, whatever. That is an unbelievable squad, man. That's like a championship team. Kevin Durant ages out, no problem. One thing that you have done is you've shown Jayson Tatum, we will do whatever it takes to build a champion around you, right? So I kind of I don't know. I kind of see the vision of trading for Durant. I wouldn't do it. But there is a part of me that's I get it. I get why this is all happening. I do understand why this would be a conversation.
Of course, it should be a conversation, but it shouldn't go any further than what it is. And it really does depend on, do you believe that Jaylen is going to be part of a championship run? Can you get back to the finals with Jaylen? I mean, you got there, and you can say, all right, well, maybe some people will try to argue that it was a fluke. I don't think it was. I don't think it was. I think you can get back. I think you can get back.
If you say it's a fluke after they beat Kevin Durant's Nets in the first round, they beat Giannis in the second round, they beat that nasty Heat team in the third round, that's not a fluke, man.
That's not a fluke. It's not a fluke.
No, absolutely not.
So, and even if right now Jaylen is on the fence about coming back, let's just, I don't know. I assuming that the Celtics will be able to offer him a ton of money and that he does seem to actually like it in Boston.
He does. He definitely does. Yeah.
What he doesn't like is necessarily the media and the way things are covered, but that exists everywhere. So,
and the fans, I mean, look, he made that kind of public by liking that one tweet. I know it's stupid to kind of read the Twitter tea leaves, but I don't know. He was he didn't seem super happy with his kind of his perception among the fan base.
Sure. Even if he's kind of, let's say, on the fence, or even if we get into some of the sports talk radio that said he's probably on the way out, I still don't trade him now. He's got 2 years left on his deal. If he is disgruntled, I take him in and I say, all right, buddy, look, what can we do? What can we do to make you happy? Well, talk to me, sit down, and
short of bringing back Ennis, what can we do to make you happy?
Right. I would sit down and be like, what would make you feel better about this situation? And I would start doing a lot of that stuff. Now, I won't say, well, you got to trade for this guy and trade for that, have him start running the franchise. But I don't think that's what he would be looking for. Yeah. I think if anything, he's looking for the appropriate level of appreciation, to which I would say, all right, fine. I would take the Celtics PR staff and say, we're focusing on Jaylen a lot more than we have in the past. We're doing everything Jaylen does off the court, every political endeavor, every talk that he's at, we're playing it up. We're making sure that he has the biggest platform an athlete can have in the city of Boston. And we're going to make it so he is loved and appreciated. And I would pull out every stop that I can for the entire season to try and make sure that the message that he wants out there, that the image that he wants out there is out there. And then if at the end of that, if we are a year from now or 11 months from now, and he's still like, you know what, it's not enough. Then you say, all right, well, then we can start talking about moving you, because you still have 1 year left and there's still going to be plenty of, 26-year-old Jaylen Brown, you can get you get a ton for him. So, but yeah. And in this hypothetical, which I don't believe exists, but even if some people shoot back at us and say, well, this is a possibility, I still don't trade him now. I put the full court press on him. I make him feel as loved as anybody can and see where that goes.
Yeah, I think that the two things that would make me a little bit hesitant about that are, one, if you think that Kevin Durant is the best that you are going to get for Jaylen Brown, then that doesn't work, right? Because then you get worried about like, geez, like what if all we end up with is like some draft picks and like a decent veteran, whatever. Like, yeah, I don't. Because the other thing is that when you get a year down the road, you might be looking at a situation where Jaylen is like, okay, but you can trade me to one of these three teams, right? And that's a little concerning too, because then, yeah, I mean, you're in the same situation as the Nets. So, you're not in the same situation as the Nets. You're in a much worse situation because the Nets have Durant under contract for 4 years and can trade him wherever. But yeah, I think overall though, I mean, I mostly agree, right? Like I think, I would try to hang on to Jaylen. I think he's great. I think he's a very good basketball player. I think this is a fantastic Celtics team with good vibes everywhere. I mean, look, don't discount the vibes, man. The vibes have been terrible in Boston for 3 of the last 4 years and before this season. And this season, they were terrible for half the year. And then the second half, they were impeccable. So, don't discount the vibes.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I'll wrap it up by saying that, keep Jaylen Brown. I think he's obviously a great player that, he's been through some stuff, man. He's been through some injuries and he's been through the COVID stuff. And, does he have stuff he needs to work on? Of course. He's 25. He's still years away from showing us his best basketball. Like, as good as we think he is, as he can be better. And the last thing is, like, at what point do the career curves of Jaylen and Kevin Durant intersect? At what point does Durant start to fall and Jaylen's rise? At what point do they cross? And if that crosses in year 2 of this, then you've screwed up. If it crosses in year 3, you can say, well, okay.
You've screwed up if you didn't win a championship your first year. I mean, if you win a championship your first year, you can kind of make the case, I think.
You could. Anytime you win a championship, all the arguments go out the window. But I still believe that Jaylen can be part of a championship, and the chance you take at, sure, Durant is awesome, but also Durant is 34, and if something happens to him and it's another Achilles, if it's another thing, you've now put yourself in a position where you got nothing. You got
disaster.
It's a disaster, and that could happen to anybody. If it happened to Jaylen, it's a disaster. But I will take my chances on 25, 26, 27-year-old Jaylen Brown getting through that. And at least if Jaylen Brown suffers it, he'll be back in a year.
Right.
He'll be back in a year or 2. And you can say, hey, at least he's 27, 28. He'll get back. And so even that hypothetical, I'd rather have Jaylen, because if it happens to KD, forget it, man. A year, he's going to come back 35, 36. Forget it. So that's the chance I really don't want to take. I acknowledge everything that Kevin Durant is right now. I don't know how much longer he's going to be that, and I'm afraid that can go away catastrophically. But Jaylen is a real cornerstone piece of a franchise that made this incredible run. He's buying into this team. He's I think, an incredible citizen for the city. He's the exact type of guy, a thoughtful, meaningful thinker who wants to not just improve himself and play basketball and win a championship, but who wants to improve the lives of people in the city in which he plays. That's the type of guy you want around your franchise. That's incredibly meaningful. I would rather have Jaylen Brown and take my chances and say, okay, in year 1, your championship odds are not quite as good as they would be with Kevin Durant. Fine. In year 2, who knows? Maybe they'd be the same. I'm going to take my chances moving down the line and think that Jaylen can stick around and be part of a long-term contender in Boston, and I'd much rather have that.
I just want Kevin Durant for the tweets. I think Kevin Durant's a hilarious tweeter. I love his Twitter presence. I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we get to be the ones who ask him about those tweets.
He's hilarious, man. I love his Twitter. I don't know. He cracks me up all the time.
All right, well, that's a good place to end it. Once Twitter mentions come up, that's time to cut the show. Bye-bye.
I feel like we started with Twitter mentions, but fine.
Yeah. Look, I'm not here for your facts. Bye, Tom.
All right, man.
Love Tom Westerholm. Find him on Boston.com, Twitter at Tom_NBA, part of the _ crew. I'm John _Karalis. I'm also here for you Monday through Friday, at least this week, going down to 3 days a week for August and September as the dead period of the NBA kind of creeps in upon us. But if Kevin Durant stuff pops up, I'm very happy to go back to 5 days a week. So the best thing to do is subscribe so you know once this show is published, it gets dropped right into your device. You can also subscribe to the show on YouTube so you can watch the show and see all the times Tom flips me off. He doesn't really, but he did actually the last one inadvertently, if you caught that. But yeah, it's a fun time on YouTube. So subscribe there. Make sure you're commenting and liking the shows so we can feed that algorithm, and share the podcast. Tell your friends, tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.